So I've been collecting tanks for getting on for 20 years now. I brought my first one back in the sort of mid-noughties. I've got a few now, it's fair to say, but not loads, but a few. And the three I've got here behind me are all similar types of tanks. They're called CVRTs, which stands for Combat Vehicle Reconnaissance Tracked. What we have here is a CVRT Sabre. So it's a light tracked reconnaissance vehicle. Most people would call it a tank. I generally call it a tank, but it's not really a tank. So this tank is actually, believe it or not, made up of two different vehicles. The bottom half is what's called a Scorpion tank. So people of my sort of age will probably remember that as the Action Man tank from the 70s and 80s. And the Scorpion tank was made redundant in about the early 90s, really because of problems with fumes in the turret when the gun was fired. This is inside of the turret of the Sabre. This is all basically incredibly spacious because everything is stripped out because I'm in the process of repainting it. But what you have to imagine is, it was fully equipped. You'd have the gun here, which would basically come out to about here. You'd then have a night sight, an infrared night sight, which would come out to about here. You'd also have a sight here, the gunner's sight, which would come down, and on the other side you'd have the commander's sight. And about the same time they had a thing called the Fox armoured car. Now the thing about the Fox armoured car, it had this turret on which has a 30mm Radin cannon, but the thing about the Fox armoured car is it was very top heavy. So they had a really bad reputation for rolling over. So they also took those out of service. So then some bright spark said, well, hang about a minute, we've got these turrets which are redundant and we've got these tank hulls which are redundant. Why don't we have a go at putting the two together? And that's what they did to create the CVRT Sabre. I first got into tanks getting on for 20 years ago now. And really it was kind of the first time in my life I had a little bit of spare cash in my pocket. And so I was kind of looking for interesting ways to invest money. And you know, so I had a look at buying wine and stuff like that, which I thought, well, I'll probably just drink that. But then I was sort of browsing the internet as you do, and came across this guy who was selling tanks. So I thought, well, do you know what? I'll go and have a look at this. And I've always been kind of interested in mechanical things in particular, so motorbikes. Not particularly military minded, but was always kind of interested in military history. So I went and had a chat with this guy, had a look at the tanks, and lo and behold, kind of bought one. Knew absolutely nothing about tanks, didn't know how to drive them, didn't know how to start them, didn't know how to fix them, nothing at all. But there was a guy that I got introduced to who had been doing it for years, who was really, really helpful. And he also said, actually, I've got somewhere where you can store it if you want, because the other problem with tanks is you've got to have a decent amount of storage space. Joys of tank ownership. Okay, so this is a CVRT Spartan. So again, same family of vehicles, exactly the same wheels and tracks. But this one is an armoured personnel carrier. It holds up to 6 people in the back, plus the driver, so a maximum of 7. I have to say, with 7 people in there, particularly squaddies with lots of kit, it would be very, very cramped indeed. This particular one was actually used more as a sort of radio command vehicle in later life. I love when the music gets so loud. I hate when I lose you from the crowd, girl. You get to know people, so people suddenly say, well, I've got this for sale or I've got that for sale. So it's that thing about, you know, who you know really as much as anything else. So I gradually started building the collection, and these things were a lot cheaper to buy back then. You could buy them for, you know, a few £1,000s really, whereas something like this, you're probably paying upwards of 50 grand these days. So it was a lot easier to get into. There's no way I could afford to buy these things now, but kind of back then, it was a lot more accessible. This one here, this is a CBRT Samson. So what you can see is that all the tracks and wheels, all the sprockets, they all look exactly the same as the Sabre. So it's the same family of vehicles. But this one, the Samson, was built as what's called an armoured recovery vehicle. So the purpose of the armoured recovery vehicle was when this one gets stuck either in a ditch or in the mud or whatever, the armoured recovery vehicle can come along. It's got a tow bar on the side, it's got a winch in the back, and it can basically winch other vehicles out of trouble. So this is a very versatile vehicle, very useful. You don't have sort of, I don't know, one of these to every 20 of these, so that when these got into trouble, these can come and help tow you out or repair any problems. Top speed around about 50 miles per hour. You do hear stories from ex-squaddies of them doing 70 miles an hour on the Autobahn. Believe it or not, who am I to call them a liar? But you know, certainly 50 miles an hour is very easily achievable for these vehicles. These were used in Iraq and Afghanistan, so they've only recently come out of service actually. So they were using these right up until probably two or three years ago. They were using these. I've had my lot now. The only thing I would say, so Warriors, which is the big armoured personnel carrier that the army were using, I'd really like one of those. They're a big piece of kit. I mean, they're big, but they're not huge. So they're like maybe, I don't know, 25 tons, something like that. And they're a really good piece of kit. So the army have taken them out of service, so they might be sold off soon. But my suspicion is not many of them will go into private hands because they're quite a modern vehicle. I suspect a lot of those will either go to Ukraine if that's still going on, or will go to, you know, another government or something. So who knows, maybe one of those. But other than that, I'm done now. So it's now about the ones I've got, trying to get them as good as I can, and then probably start gradually reducing the collection and just have left what I really want, you know. I'll probably keep a couple, and those will be kind of inherited by my sons. The problem is trying to decide which ones I want to keep, because, you know, this one is the first one I bought, this one is the one that I enjoy driving the most, this one is the one that I've got the most memories of, you know, so it's just kind of hard to decide which ones I'm going to keep. So I generally keep them all for that reason, because I can't decide which ones to flog. But, you know, at the end of the day, when I'm not getting any use out of them, when it gets to the point where, you know, because tanks are a young man's game really, they're designed for young people to drive, so it gets harder to get in and out of them and stuff like that as you get older, and because stuff's heavy and big and they're hard to fix. So there will come a point where I'm just not getting the enjoyment out of them anymore, and I won't really be too bad. I'll just sell them on then, to be honest, and let somebody else enjoy them. There's no point in them sitting around not being used, is there, when somebody else could be enjoying them. So that's the main thing, and looking after them, because, you know, these things will probably still be around in 50 or 60 years. Somebody else will be looking after them then and messing about with them, enjoying them, hopefully.